Jazz, the Mammoth, and the Utes, Cougars, and Aggies. When it comes to sports in Utah, we've got you covered. This is Scotty G and the coach, Tim LeCaux, presented by Mountain Land Supply on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Scott Gerard alongside the coach. Tim LeCaux joining us, by the way. And, Tim, when you look at college football, you look at the landscape, there's very few people that cover the sport better than this guy, Stewart Mandel, kind enough to hang out with us right here on the Zone. Stewart, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Doing well. All right, so congressional stuff. Let's start there. Is this dead? Is there a pulse? Is there? Are we flatlined? What? How do you? If you were a doctor, how would you diagnose what we've got going on?
It's just going down to the wire. The Big Ten and SEC have been given a couple of deadlines now to give their approval, and they haven't done that yet. The goal in the Senate is to get this thing to the floor for a vote next week before the Senate goes into a month-long recess. And so I think, from what I understand, if they could turn it around by tomorrow, that becomes more realistic. But there's definitely some language in there that is still causing friction between the two sides.
Stewart, you've been doing this forever and seen so many changes. We've been talking a ton this week about the state that college football's in. If you were running college football for like an hour, what's one thing that you would do to bring forth some positive change? Just one, what do you feel like one of the main instances that needs to be looked at?
Well, the first thing I would do is shoot down any talk of a 2014 playoff. Let's just get this silliness out of the way. But it's not that simple, because I do think where this is ultimately headed is there needs to be some recognition that football and men's basketball are completely different sports than all the rest and need to be separated out and governed on their own. A lot of the single biggest issue right now in this Senate bill has to do with a salary cap, and should it be $40 million or $45 million, et cetera. And almost all of that money is going to be going to those two to those two sports. So the idea that this is the United States Senate is haggling over something that would affect all of these sports that frankly don't, that it's not all that relevant to, kind of is in a nutshell, among many reasons why the way things have always been done with the NCAA, I don't think can last much longer.
Greg Sankey talked at SEC Media Day about, hey, we're having real conversations about breaking away. That's real. It's not just leverage. In your opinion, is it real, or was it just leverage?
It's not that they are going to break away and form their own, their own college football league, though don't put it past them. What they're saying is all the conferences have spent the last 5 years begging Congress to kind of rescue them from themselves on all of the NIL portal, all the things that they get sued for. And I think they view this Senate bill as the last great hope. And if it doesn't happen, then the SEC is, and I do think serious, talking about, well, then we're going to kind of separate our rules making from the NCAA's, and we're going to kind of regulate ourselves. Whether that's realistic or not, there are people in that conference, a lot of people in that conference, who do seriously want to do that.
We've had Kyle Whittingham here for 20-plus years. Last couple of years, he's been ringing the chime that, this is basically the end game is going to be the Super League, and, where 30, 40, whatever the number is, teams are represented on that top tier. Do you feel like that will coincide with, when TV's up again in 2030? Do you feel like that would be a time where we could kind of see maybe that happen?
Something like that, yes. I feel like for a while, when you talk about a Super League, and consolidating all of the big brands, that has almost happened already. We have seen in realignment the Big Ten and SEC hoard almost all of those schools. There's only a few left that you would say, oh, yeah, they'd definitely be invited to a Super League that aren't in it, most notably Notre Dame, but also probably Florida State, Clemson, maybe Miami. But what I don't know how to forecast at this point. Is it really something that radical where all those schools and only those schools go off and do their own thing, or are we looking at the Big Ten and SEC kind of doing that themselves, gobbling up the last few schools that are still, like I said, considered those blue blood brands, and saying, yeah, we're the AFC and the NFC now. We don't need to do a super league. We can just have a playoff with each other and schedule games against each other, and it'll be like the NFL.
Stewart Mandel joining us. You can read him on The Athletic, also part of Audible as well. You know, when you look at the ability of Michigan to just generate whatever kind of money they want, whatever they're able to do, and you have Kyle Whittingham saying, hey, you know what? We're on the precipice of $50 million rosters. He's probably saying that because he knows he's going to, in the near future, have a $50 million roster. Do you think that's really realistic, that we'll see that here very quickly?
I think it already is. Me and my colleagues have been doing a lot of reporting. It's hard to get exact roster numbers, right? You could talk to two or three people in the same building and get a different number. But I do think that the upper echelon is in somewhere in the 40 to 47 range. And so it would not surprise me if one or more of those are actually at 50. It's not that far off from it yet.
So let's NCAA.
And by the way, think about how much that has gone up from 2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
When it was such a big deal that Ohio State had a $20 million roster, to now not just Ohio State but probably a dozen others, maybe not a dozen, let's say 8 to 10, are in the 45 to 50 range.
Yeah, it has not taken long, and that's typically what humans do. They speed up that process. The NCAA, not to be forgotten about, stood up yesterday. Oh, wait, we have a violation to report out of Tennessee. When will we basically not have to deal with these people anymore? Is it going to disappear, and is something else going to replace it because they continue to just show how inept they are?
I chalk that one up to so many of the other more significant rules have been, struck down by a judge somewhere that they've got to take their victories where they can. And
that's what it feels like.
The extra benefits rule that was in play there, or the agent rule, is one of the only things that hasn't been struck down yet. But that's really what this whole congressional push is all about. It's kind of gotten away from what they originally were seeking. If you remember the SCORE Act, which was part of our world for a year or two there, it was more giving the NCAA an antitrust exemption so that they can make rules and enforce rules without getting sued. Somehow when it became a Senate bill, it became much more prescriptive where the Senate itself is making the rules, which I find kind of bizarre. And so that's why we're in this situation where people are looking at the Big Ten and SEC and saying, hey, this is what you guys wanted. You've been telling us for 5 years you want help from Congress. Why aren't you signing off on this? But the reality is it's much different. And frankly, if I were them, I wouldn't sign off on it because a lot of the provisions in there, Maria Cantwell, one of the senators, has been very outspoken about they want to strip the Big Ten and SEC of their powers. It's a bill that's targeted at them. So I don't really find it all that surprising, and I'm not really offended that they might not sign off on it.
Stewart Mandel hanging out with us, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. So let's actually talk real football. Let's look at the Big 12. You got BYU and Utah in there. The Sorsby thing kicked up and then obviously went away pretty quickly. But with or without Sorsby, do you still believe that I guess I'm assuming you believed it earlier, but do you think that Texas Tech is the best team in that conference, or do you think BYU is toe-to-toe with them?
Toe-to-toe, and BYU is actually my pick in the preseason. I don't know that it's necessarily that, obvious one way or the other. I do think Will Hammond, when he played for Texas Tech last year, was good. I never thought Brendan Sorsby was a sure thing. He had his moments at Cincinnati, but things didn't go well for him once they got to the late stretch of the season. So it's not like, I thought Texas Tech was going to be over the moon and then Sorsby. So, but, the whole key to Texas Tech's run last year was their defensive line. They had 4 guys who all got drafted, including, David Bailey very high. And I know they went back in the portal and Cody Campbell spent his money on the replacements, but I just can't imagine they're going to be that dominant again. And so that opens the door possibly for somebody else. And BYU pretty much, there's a team that's already been right on the brink the last 2 years, has a quarterback they feel good about, a running back who personally I think has been there forever, but, I guess it's only his senior season. And, they're always going to have a really good defense. So it's a toss-up to me. Now, the Big 12 being what it is and a lot of parity, frankly, last year, no, but usually there'll be somebody we're not counting on that'll rise up, and maybe it's Utah, maybe it's somebody else. But it's not like I'm saying BYU and Texas Tech are now the Ohio State, Michigan of the Big 12.
You mentioned Utah. What do you anticipate with Morgan Scalley taking over there? Been around Kyle for a long time, but it is a climb to that position to be the head coach. Your thoughts on what Morgan's first year will look like?
I mean, I have a lot of confidence in him on the whole going forward. He's been obviously getting ready for this for a long time. But like you said, first years, even if you're already there, I think what gets overlooked is, yes, he's there and there's continuity, but others left. And, I do think Kyle Whittingham, made a great choice at OC last year, and then that OC follows him to Ann Arbor. So a lot of when a first-year coach comes in, a lot of how that first year is going to go is, well, did you make the right hires on your staff? Is the staff, coming together right beyond just the obviously questions with the personnel?
I know there's going to be probably some Utah fans that are going to be hate watching Michigan throughout the year this year, but Kyle Whittingham, considering what Michigan was going through, was an absolute perfect fit for what Michigan needed at that time to kind of stabilize that university and that athletic department. Obviously, there's talent on that roster. Obviously, you got a great coach. Where do they shake out in the Big 12, or in the Big 10 with Ohio State and Oregon?
I will answer that, but you're going to have to explain to me afterward why people are going to be hate watching them. It's not like he left the school for Michigan. It was that the school and him didn't see eye to eye, and said goodbye, and then he got the Michigan job. It wasn't like
Stewart. No, make no mistake. If Kyle Whittingham should very well be the head coach at Utah, and I am agree. Look, I love Morgan Scalley. Morgan's going to be great. I have little doubt about that. But Kyle Whittingham, if he had gas left in the tank, he should be coaching at the University of Utah. But there's also a certain level of fans that just get angry about everything. That they got mad when they took players, Smith Snowden, even though Utah would do the exact same thing if given the opportunity. You know how fans are. I'm just saying fans are not the most reasonable when it comes to who they cheer and cheer against.
No, I get it. It's frankly kind of amazing to me, that Washington fans still hate Kalen DeBoer, even though he took them to the national title game. Just feeling so. Okay. It's hard to say with Michigan. I think there's a lot of talent there. I think the biggest question is Bryce Underwood the guy that they thought he was going to be, right? 5-star quarterback who comes in last year and didn't do much, frankly. And at the time, people thought, well, maybe Sharon Moore was kind of handicapping him. They were running the ball a lot. And then he goes out in the spring game with the new coaching staff and doesn't look any better. And so the Big Ten is a very deep conference now, and there's a lot of really good quarterbacks in it. And so Michigan, I don't think has one of them necessarily. So can they have a 8-9 win kind of season, go to a decent bowl game? Yes, of course. But to make the playoff, either Bryce Underwood's going to have to get a lot better and show us, oh, yeah, that's what the hype was all about, or they're going to have to try somebody else.
Stewart Mandel joining us from The Athletic. Stewart, thanks for taking all this time. We've been reading you forever. Give me one team that you're either higher on or lower on than the average Joe.
Good question. I think I kind of gave one just now in Michigan in terms of the maybe not as high on it as some people. I think that this might be a cop-out answer, but I think people that are expecting Indiana to slip back are going to be disappointed. I'm not saying they're going to go 16-0 again. That seems very. I don't know, and I don't know if anybody will. Right? It was an unbelievable team, but this is not old Indiana. I was there in the spring, and it just felt exactly like going to an Alabama spring practice when Saban had it going, or a Georgia spring practice. Like, they're still very good. Yes, they lost a lot of guys, but they brought in guys in the portal who are just as good, if not better. So I have them number one. I don't know yet if I'll actually pick them to win the national title, but like in terms of who should start number one in the preseason rankings, them. And then I'm a little bit concerned about Oregon, who is loaded. Don't get me wrong, but losing Dan Lanning, losing both coordinators is not an insignificant thing.
Stewart, we appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us as always. Looking forward to catching up with you down the line sometime.
All right. Thanks, guys.
I promise nobody will be hate reading Stewart Mandel.
No, Stewart, that guy, he's a legend.
Yeah.
Been doing it forever.
Yeah, good dude.